Hello and welcome to my channel, and welcome to a Sunday morning meetup in which I discuss my Desert Island Books project in conjunction with Jason's Booktube Top 10s tag. I've approached Jason's tag in the spirit of Desert Island Discs, and as in that BBC Radio 4 programme, it is of course understood that I automatically have the King James Version of the Bible and the complete works of William Shakespeare. So these magnificent works do not need to appear on my top 10 list, which I have limited to 10 novels. In 2019, I have decided on a Desert Island Books project in which I am planning to reread my top 10 favourite books throughout 2019. And so I've combined this with the Booktube Top 10s tag for Jason's database. I'll be talking about my Desert Island Books project and other projects in my TBR video next Sunday. So ring the notifications bell to be sure you receive that update. I've noticed that in looking over my list that there is an underlying reason for the choice of all 10 of the books I have chosen, and indeed for the King James Version of the Bible and the works of Shakespeare, and that is that they all have the three things in common that I admire in my favourite books. They all have fascinating characters, a compelling storyline, and a pleasing narrative style. With the 10 books I have chosen, I could populate my island so I would not feel isolated from agreeable and interesting people. I chose all of these books with care and compared them with all the other books that I have in my library to see if there were any others that could replace them. I carefully considered other candidates, and I found that I could somewhat live happily without them on my island if I could have the 10 books that I have chosen, with of course the 2 works mentioned above. Yes, I would be very happy with these books. So here are some of the books I considered and discarded from my choice. Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Now, I don't think that this selfish, self-centered, egotistical drug addict would be a suitable companion for a desert island. Rumpole of the Bailey by John Mortimer. As much as I love the curmudgeonly old Bailey hack, I think his repetitive comments would soon start to irritate me. The Code of the Woosters by P.G. Wodehouse. Bertie's memoirs are best consumed in small doses, as he is a fatuous idiot who needs a good kick up the backside. He would annoy me if I had to entertain his company 24/7. James Herriot's memoirs are entertaining, but I don't think I could stomach Tristan and Siegfried for very long on a deserted island. I passed over Madame Bovary, Portrait of a Lady, and many others that are too numerous to mention. So, to avoid piling example upon example, you can understand from the examples I have given how I weeded out many of the books I enjoy for one reason or another, and none of which could replace the 10 books I have chosen. I'm also happy with the order in which I've ranked them. At first I thought that this would be an impossible task, but the more I looked at my list and considered them, the more I felt that my ranking reflected my relative appreciation for these books. So, coming in at number 10, White Teeth by Zadie Smith. This debut novel by Zadie Smith is an astonishingly accomplished first novel which I first read in the year 2000. I thought it was brilliant. I read about the Joneses, the Iqbals and the Chalfants, 3 families living at the end of the 20th century, all British to varying degrees and involved in each other's lives in every conceivable way, personally, politically, historically and genetically. Different colours, different religions and different sides of the unforgotten colonial fence. They have one thing in common: a small borough of North London where extremism of all kinds is the order of the day and the dilemmas of previous generations are obsessively played out in the present. At the epicentre lies the hapless Archibald Jones, who can't make a decision without flipping a coin. An everyman with no distinguishing features apart from consistency, a quality that turns out to be his greatest asset. It is this quality that cements his antagonistic wartime friendship with Samad Iqbal and reinforces their indelible bond when Samad moves to England in the immigrant wave of the 1970s. It is what keeps Archie married to Clara, a beautiful black girl half his age, who married him by accident. It is what ties the Jones and the Iqbal clans together over 50 years, despite their manifold differences. But when the Chalfens arrive on the scene, a family with some interesting plans for the future of the planet, not to mention the Jones and Iqbal children, Archie's laissez-faire attitude is tested to the limit, and the second generation begin to have plans of their own. Yes, I would definitely want Archibald Jones, Samad Iqbal and the Chalfens to keep me company on my deserted island. Coming in at number 9, Daughter of Fortune by Isabel Allende. Here is a brief extract of the critical moment in the book from page 111. The storeroom where Eliza and Joaquin made love on the huge bundle of flowered cretonne draperies that in summer replaced the green velvet parlour drapes was on the ground floor. They loved one another, surrounded by armoires, hat boxes, and Miss Rosie's cloth-wrapped spring dresses. Neither the cold nor the smell of mothballs bothered them, because they were beyond practical concerns, beyond fear of the consequences, pay attention to that, and beyond their own puppy-like clumsiness. Now from page 112. After making love before dawn, Joaquin and Dieta left by the same library window, and Eliza went back to bed. When he arrived home, his mother was waiting for him. "Where have you been, son?" she asked, so sadly that he could not deceive her. "Discovering love, Mamma," he answered, throwing his arms around her, his face radiant. Now here is the blurb. Orphaned at birth, Eliza Summers is raised in the British colony of Valparaiso, Chile, by a well-intentioned Victorian spinster, Miss Rose, and her brother Jeremy. Just as she meets and falls in love with the highly unsuitable Joaquin Andieta, a lowly clerk who works for Jeremy, gold is discovered in the hills of Northern California. By 1849, Chileans everywhere have fallen prey to feverish dreams of wealth. Joaquin takes off for San Francisco to seek his fortune, and Eliza, pregnant with his child, decides to follow him. Daughter of Fortune is a sweeping portrait of an era, a story rich in character, history, violence, and compassion. In Eliza, Allende has created one of her most appealing heroines, an adventurous, independent-minded, and highly unconventional young woman who has the courage to reinvent herself and to create her own destiny in a new country. This is a compelling narrative by a powerful and accomplished writer who will draw you into Eliza's world, and she will have you rooting for her all the way. I thought that this story and Eliza were utterly beguiling. I would certainly want her on my desert island. Coming at number 8, The Secret of Santa Vittoria by Robert Crichton. Santa Vittoria, a little Italian town that stands alone against the German army to affirm for all time and all people the fundamental dignity of man. This joyous book is dramatic, involving, moving, hilarious, enthralling, vibrant and alive with the sheer joy of life, and it has a gallery of interesting characters caught up in a perilous situation as the German army during World War II moves in to commandeer their stock of wines, 1 million bottles in all. In spite of threats, torture and humiliation, there is one man who rises to greatness to outwit the Germans and so preserve their 1 million bottles of wine from being sequestered by their enemies. Bombolino, who I always picture as Anthony Quinn, who played him brilliantly in the film. He is a shiftless, lazy, good-for-nothing, heavy-drinking, henpecked nobody. This is the man that the town decides to elect as mayor after they overthrow the existing council. No one expects much from him, but Bombolino has hidden depths of intelligence and resourcefulness and qualities of leadership that no one expected he had. Particularly his scornful, nagging wife. I would absolutely want Bombolino with me on my deserted island. Coming in at number 7, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I feel that I hardly need to say very much about this book. My copy, published in 1989, states that the Pulitzer Prize winner has sold over 30 million copies. And has probably sold many more millions since then. This is a rare novel filled with warmth and humour. It is the story of the conscience of a town steeped in prejudice, violence and hypocrisy, which is pricked by the stamina of one man's struggle for justice. That man is Atticus Finch, and I would unquestionably want this marvellous man as a companion on my deserted island. Coming in at number 6, The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. Kazuo Ishiguro has accomplished something extraordinary with the creation of Mr. Stevens, the aging butler. He has created a wholly convincing portrait of the human life unfolding before our very eyes, which is both inventive and absorbing. This story of lost love is both amusing and very moving. It is a comedy of manners that is a profound and heart-rending study of personality, class and culture. Yes, Mr. Stevens, quietly efficient and controlled, would be a suitable companion on my deserted island. Coming in at number 5, Middlemarch by George Eliot. Right from the beginning of Middlemarch, I was enthralled by this masterly writer. I became totally involved in the character and attitudes of Dorothea and Celia Brooke. Within 50 pages, the introduction of the hopes and concerns of Casaubon and Sir James are totally involving. The proposed marriage of Dorothea and Casaubon, with Dorothea's doubts and passionate attitude, looked forward to disaster. Although very long, my copy comes in at 743 pages. Nevertheless, Middlemarch was involving and very enjoyable throughout, as a whole web of relationships unfold, and the private and public quarrels of the town of Middlemarch draw you in. Yes, I would like to have the inhabitants of Middlemarch to inhabit my deserted island along with me. Coming in at number 4, Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. Bathsheba Everdene and her 3 lovers, Gabriel Oak, Mr. Boldwood and Sergeant Troy. Who will she choose? You need to read the novel to find out. Bathsheba and me on a deserted island? You bet. Coming in at number 3, David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. This semi-autobiographical novel was Dickens' own favourite. Tolstoy thought it the greatest of Dickens' novels, and W. Somerset Maugham included it in his book 10 Novels and Their Authors. I can do nothing better than to quote Maugham from this book. David Copperfield is filled with characters of the most astonishing variety, vividness and originality. There never were such people as the Micawbers, Peggotty and Barkis, Traddles, Betsy Trotwood and Mr. Dick, Uriah Heep and his mother. They are fantastic inventions of Dickens' exultant imagination. But they have so much vigour, they are so consistent, they are presented with so much verisimilitude and with so much conviction that while you read you cannot but believe in them. They may not be real, but they are very much alive. On my deserted island I would want to be entertained by this marvellous cast of characters. My edition is in 2 volumes totaling 1,057 pages. So it is a world to become absorbed in, and I think I would need that on my deserted island to stop myself from fretting on my lonely condition. Coming in at number 2, Barchester Towers by Anthony Trollope. It has the great character, self-righteous Mrs. Proudie, the slimy Mr. Slope, and the noble Archdeacon Grantley. In his autobiography, Trollope observed, "In the writing of Barchester Towers, I took great delight. The Bishop and Mrs. Proudie were very real to me, as were also the troubles of the Archdeacon and the loves of Mr. Slope. Mrs. Proudie's interference to veto the reappointment of the universally popular Mr. Septimus Harding as warden of Hiram's Hospital is not well received. But even less popular than Mrs. Proudie is the Bishops New Chaplain, the hypocritical and sycophantic Mr. Obadiah Slope, who decides it would be expedient to marry Harding's wealthy widowed daughter, Eleanor Bold. Slope hopes to win her favour by interfering in the controversy over the wardenship. Does he succeed? You have to read the novel to find out. There is one blot on this novel, and that involves the Italian characters, which do not please me. But the merits of this novel exceed by far any minor issues that I might have with it. After all, it contains Archdeacon Grantley. I positively want him with me on my deserted island. Coming in at number 1, and this should be no surprise, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I've spoken before on my channel of my admiration for this great book, so once again I will quote from Mom's book 10 Novels and Their Authors. The great mass of readers, I believe, has accepted Pride and Prejudice as her masterpiece, and in such a case I think it well to accept their judgment. I think that Pride and Prejudice is on the whole the most satisfactory of all the novels. I agree with Mom. Pride and Prejudice is a very well constructed book. The incidents follow one another naturally, and one's sense of probability is nowhere outraged. Of course, there's also the character of Elizabeth. She is full of gaiety, high spirits and courage, wit and readiness, good sense and right feeling. Mom speculates that Austen was drawing a portrait of herself in Elizabeth. I've already spoken of my admiration for Mr. Darcy, his general character and noble feelings. He has his faults, it is true, but with Elizabeth's help he begins to amend his proud and insolent manner and becomes a character that excites our admiration. Would I want Darcy and Elizabeth with me on my deserted island? What do you think? So that's all, folks, and remember to comment, subscribe, like and share, and I'll be back soon with another Booktube video.